Glue Wednesday. You see, it's my belief that we don't have to get over. We need to find ways to keep it together. And my glue is G.L.U.E. God's love undoes everything, because that's what keeps it together. That life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of each puzzle in your family, social, or business relationships. Yet, no matter what size puzzle piece you think you are, without you, the puzzle is labeled as incomplete. Hi, I'm Sporty King, your host for Glue Wednesday, and welcome to 2018. Actually, welcome to whatever day this is. It's the first day of the rest of your life and the first day of the next one. So I actually always say happy new moments, because it's the moments that make a difference that a year can't do unless it has the moments. Okay, I didn't plan to say that. I don't know if it came out smooth. I'm not going to worry about it. But look, I just want to let you know that I call it Glue Wednesday because I think it's so important that we get focused on keeping it together, finding ways to keep it together. And with Wednesday being the middle of a 7-day work week, it keeps the beginning and the end of the week together. And that's what we want to do, is find those formulas to keep ourselves together. That's why my glue is G.L.U.E. God's love undoes everything. Not that it tears apart what we need, but that it takes the things that have fallen apart and helps us put them back together. So my topic this week is suicide. Now you say, wow, there's a perky topic to open up the new year. Well, actually, I say yes it is. And here's my reason. Because someone could be experiencing a lingering memory of a loved one who ended their life by suicide. And the truth is, my message, just like yours, is to the living, not the dead. And the message is to the living so that we can find ways to possibly prevent the next death. I'm contracted with the Yellow Ribbon program. It's the Yellow Ribbon Reintegration Program, which is a program sponsored by the Department of Defense. I speak to military service members and family members going through the deployment cycle. And I often open my speaking with an analogy about how much more mature military kids are than our civilian kids, especially if they're experiencing a deployment of a parent. And sometimes our teachers are really not prepared to handle our military kids. So I like to talk to them about a situation where there's a 4th grade teacher talking to her class about mammals. And she says, though the whale is the largest mammal on the face of the earth, its throat is actually so small it can't swallow a human being. Well, little Susie, the military kid, raised her hand and said, no, teacher, that's not true. A whale can swallow a human being. And the teacher's like, oh my God, these military kids, they're so outspoken. She said, look, Susie, no, thank you for participating, but a whale is the largest mammal on the face of the earth. Its throat is actually so small it cannot swallow a human being. But thanks for participating. Well, Susie says, well, a whale swallowed Jonah. The teachers, oh my God, good answer. They're so creative as well as outspoken. But I can't let Susie take over my class. Look, Susie, thank you for participating. I'm sure some of your fellow students are glad to hear your creativity and the imagination you put into your work and study. But please understand, number one, the whale is the largest mammal on the face of the earth. Number two, its throat is actually so small it cannot swallow a human being. And number three, there's no proof that a whale ever swallowed Jonah. And so Susie said, well, I guess I'll just have to ask Jonah when he gets to heaven. And her classmates chuckled and said, go Susie, go Susie. And the teacher said, I gotta shut this kid down because I run this class. She said, well, you know what, Susie, what if Jonah went to hell? The class got quiet. Susie didn't skip a beat. Susie said, well, then you ask him. And so it begs the question, what conversation are you having with Susie? And I'll stop for a minute and let you finish chuckling on that, because I tell you, we crack up laughing when I tell that story, because it's one of my favorites. Because we have to think about it. What conversation are you having with Susie? When I'm talking to my deploying parents, I'm saying to them, maybe when you leave, she's Susie, but when you come back, she's Susan. Because we all grow through a separation, and a deployment is a physical separation of a spiritual bond both in a relationship and in a family, as well as in the support network. So it's not always about a married couple. We have plenty of single soldiers deploying as well, and their family is thrown into somewhat of a flux as well. So we've got to think about what's going on with their nieces and nephews, their neighbors, kids. There's always somebody. So there's always a Susie. And I want to ask you, my viewing audience, what conversation are you having with Susie, with a friend, with a relative, with a coworker? A conversation about suicide is one of those hard conversations to have. And so I'd like to give you some ammunition that may not be for the conversation, but for the compassion. And of course, I'll start out by reconnecting you to my segment's theme, and that is life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of the puzzle. Yet no matter what size piece of the puzzle you see yourself as in your family, social, or business relationships, without you, that puzzle is called incomplete. Yet sometimes the biggest question for us is not what size piece of the puzzle we are, but sometimes we may wonder where we fit into the equation, as with a topic such as suicide. And no, you didn't hear me slip up. I didn't say, do we fit? I said, where we fit. You see, everybody is involved in some way or another. We need to find out, what we need to find out is how we're involved. Am I a survivor of an attempt, or of having lost someone to suicide? Do I know someone who survived? Do I know a child who needs bereavement counseling? What can I do? What should I do? How should I do it? You see, we are all involved in some way or another. Now, I'm what's called a suicide loss survivor. Having experienced an employee suicide, it's similar to survivor's remorse, where you escape a tragic situation but your friend doesn't, and you wonder if you could have done something more to save them. In most cases, you could not have done anything more. In my case, I was 29 years old, and I had just been relocated, not immediately, but I had relocated from New York to Washington, D.C. back in my Wall Street Journal days as a sales rep. And one of my employees, after we had, I experienced an employee taking her life by suicide the day after we had a long overdue lunch. And we had rescheduled that lunch several times in several different weeks. The day we got the news, I looked back and I marveled at how intense she was on telling me how I had revived her career and helped ease some of the tension in her life, etc. But I wondered if she was so conscious of clearing my conscience, and had she rescheduled her attempt along with our rescheduled lunches, and I wondered if that was possibly another cancellation might have made her hold off a little longer and live a little longer just to make that happen. You see, I kept wondering what my part in the situation was. I had to wonder if there was anything I could have done to prevent her from taking her life. It may still come down to a 50-50 chance that you may be able to do that for somebody. But back then, for me, it was a 100 to 0 chance because I was not aware. Now, do we walk around reading into every word every person says while reading between the lines of every joke or complaint they have? Absolutely not. But let's talk about what we can do. And we're going to talk about it by using the letters in the word puzzle. What I did was create a seminar called My Piece of the Puzzle, or Puzzles. And everyone who came in received a business-sized card, something like this, that had one letter of the word puzzle in it. And the joy of the session was in the interactivity of when their letter was called, they had the challenge of discussing words that began with their letter, with that letter, which had something to do with suicide prevention. And though puzzle starts with a P, we're going to start with the letter U. What are some words that begin with U that have to do with suicide prevention? Well, I made my first word understand. Understand that 90% of people who die by suicide have a potentially treatable mental disorder at the time of their death. A disorder that often has gone unrecognized you, or untreated another you, like depression or bipolar disorder. 2, the term suicide is best used to describe the act, not the person who died that way. See, nobody wants to hear their loved one's life summed up by the circumstances of their death. Understand, 3, a suicide is never a success. I know we hear people say they successfully committed suicide. A suicide is not a success. And 4, although we may hear that someone has committed suicide, most people find died by suicide to be more objective and less judgmental. It's generally accepted to refer to someone as someone who died by suicide with those words, or as a suicide decedent. If you're having a conversation with a family member, the term successful suicide can be hurtful and jarring. Most of my facts, by the way, and research are from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, afsp.org, and you can go there to get much more information, whose data is taken from what the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, from their report. And for over 25 years, AFSP has been committed to preventing suicide by increasing public and professional awareness, understanding of suicide as a mental health and public health problem. Both topics you can hear addressed in more detail here on the Wake Up Call Radio TV network. I invite you and I recommend that you tune into shows like Chantel Johnson's Through the Storm, which I playfully call Loving the Storm, because I believe that it's only when we go through the storm that we continue to find out that we go through, with through being a self-fulfilling prophecy, that we're not stuck in the storm, but then we're going through. As well as Doc Honeycutt's show, Enlightenment, which I like that creative twist that she used on the word. Instead of saying enlightenment, she says enlifement. And you know, life is one of my acronyms, LIFE, lessons intended for everyone. And so as you get different lessons from the shows, you can put them all together. And again, possibly, as this show is trying to do, get some facts that can help you help someone else prevent suicide. But coupling those with any of our faith-based shows with what I'm sharing here, what we understand is that there is no single cause to suicide. It most often occurs when stressors exceed current coping attitudes and abilities of someone suffering from a mental health disorder. So we want to find ways to understand the behaviors in mood. We want to find ways to understand the behaviors or moods, as well as realize that many suicides actually go, another you, unreported. Yet suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Each year, 44,965 people take their lives by suicide. For every suicide, 25 attempts are considered to have been made. And lastly, a person dies by suicide every 12.3 minutes in the United States. These and additional facts about suicide in the United States, such as suicide attempts, suicide rates by age, gender, race, or ethnicity, can be found at afsp.org. And another you, uncomfortable, because I know that's what you can feel sometimes. Suicide, like death, can be hard to talk about. Many of us grow up with the belief that people who take their own lives are crazy, selfish, or have some kind of a moral defect. As they understand that suicidal thinking and behavior is the result of a treatable medical condition, people become less fearful and more able to listen to a person in distress with empathy and without judgment. And that could be you. So noticing the signs may be the opening. We can better understand through talking. What might someone considering suicide talk about? Killing themselves, having no reason to live, being a burden to others, feeling trapped, unbearable pain. And you may not remember this verbatim, but at least you may remember hearing it. And try to avoid saying things like, "You have so much to live for," or "Think about how this will hurt your family." Instead, show concern and compassion by saying, "Things must really be awful for you to be feeling that way." Let them know that you are there to listen. Encourage them to share what they're feeling. Let them know that people sometimes feel like there's no answer, but that treatment can help them feel better. And so another U, ugly. But it's the you that I use in my speech, U-G-L-Y, unique, gifted, lovable you. The fact that there's a self-esteem issue involved with so much that we go through. Everybody has been on that roller coaster ride of self-esteem. How am I unique? Am I gifted? Am I lovable? Who am I? So that's when I created that speech of how to be ugly, and I call that my signature keynote speech. It's talking about self-esteem. And studies have been conducted to tie suicide to being bullied. So be sure to mentor your child's school interactivity. You can also find information about addressing teen suicide at heyugly.org, where I am a co-founder, and we address 3 topics, those 3 topics, self-esteem, bullying, and suicide, as we also continuously aim at keeping kids positive and productive, as well as educating their parents to do the same. And another U, unnecessary. There are resources. I have a friend whose father died by suicide when she was young. And later in life, her fiance jumped off the top of the roof of a hospital. I asked her, had she considered suicide, since there is considered to be a genetic link, similar to how diabetes is. And she said that she had. In high school, she had considered it. And that now, if she thinks she's depressed and can't shake it, she runs to the hospital and back into therapy. Based on how long it took her to get closure over her father, she doesn't want to put that burden on her loved ones. So we close out the U with the more that you understand, the better we can unleash the stigma of unreported attempts associated with shame. Let's move on to the P, which is for psychological. Beyond medicines, specific types of psychotherapies have been proven effective for treating depression. These are usually short-term, lasting from 12 to 16 weeks, and they are formalized for the individual and interactive. Sessions may take 1 to 2 times a week, may take place 1 to 2 times a week with a professional who's been specifically trained and certified in the treatment that they are using. One high-risk group is people with bipolar disorder, which is characterized by mood swings from high, which is manic, to low, depressive, often with periods of feeling normal in between. And obviously, yet always worth saying, the abuse of drugs or alcohol accelerates the process and the risk. When being treated, the patient should be completely honest about his or her alcohol or drug intake for the safest treatment and the best chance of getting better. Well, one of my taglines is that I help people stay powerful and positive when positive doesn't seem like an option. So let's use the letter P to address some of those positive options. The first P, people. And you've heard me say it before, choose your messengers carefully. Continually surrounding yourself with positive people reduces the likelihood of your crossing that sometimes fine line between thinking about, I can get over this, or I can't and I need to take my life. So many people use the end of the year to talk about coming into the new year by letting certain others go. I had to laugh and agree when I saw a friend post that it's more important to come into the year professing to make better choices on who you bring into your life. And I add, be sure that you are reassessing and cutting them loose throughout the year. Because P is also for the word precious. And you've got to consistently see yourself, as my good brother Gus always says to his wife, as precious cargo. Another P, purpose. What are your hobbies and habits? What bring a sense of purpose to your life? Your habits and your hobbies contribute to that sense of purpose, and to another P, to your passion. What keeps you going? What gets you excited and what keeps you excited? Follow your passion. We hear that cliche all the time about following your passion. Well, that's really what it means. What keeps you going? 2 more P's, pace and patience. See, if you need to heal from suicide loss, take your time. Maybe there's someone in your life that has taken their life by suicide, and you feel a little bad about it. Well, you need to take your time. There's no statistic that say it will take you 30 days to get over. It's similar to how the loss of a loved one. In fact, I'm coming up on the 11th anniversary of my mother's death. And one thing, I ran into a friend of mine over the weekend, and he told me, well, since I last saw you, my mother died. I said, well, how old was she? And he said, 86. I said, man, I'm jealous, because mine only made it to 75. And I told him, and I said, what you always want to recognize is that what you have to do is focus on getting through and living with the deceased person being gone. No such thing as trying to get over it. I have no goal whatsoever to get over the loss of my mother. I will just continue to live through it. And so again, if you are living through a suicide of a loved one, pace yourself and recognize that it's going to take some time. Part of the awareness is the mindset of survivors who wondered if they could have done more to prevent a suicide. There was nothing more you can do. Survivor's guilt can possibly lead to the next suicide. If you're busy beating yourself up about what you didn't do, it may make you decide to take your life. It's hard to read the signs of suicide, so forgive yourself if you missed them. P, perception. Reconnecting us to the you and understanding. See, it's the perception that we have of suicide that we had before this broadcast started, where you just, oh, suicide people, yeah, they're crazy. Well, I hope I've cleared a little bit of that up and help you understand that it's a mental illness that can be treated, and we don't have to have that stigma. If you're dealing with some of those thoughts, find a way to get some therapy and get on some meds. Pressure. Peer and parental pressure. Peer pressure is tough. That'll push somebody to suicide. Parental pressure to your children is tough as well. But then there's also the pressure of being a parent. You are doing a great job as a parent. There's really no such thing as a bad parent, because parents do the best they can with the information they have. If you've read the parenting handbook, P.S., by the way, it's 40 pages, and they're all blank, because there's no rule to being a parent. Just as if you turn the book over and read it the other way, you have the handbook for being a child. There's no rules to being a child. Everybody who's had multiple kids will tell you that no two children are alike. So if no two children are alike, how can you treat them as one generic type of parent? You have to get better at it each time you go. So give yourself credit if you've been a parent, because if God has gifted you with bringing a child into the world, then that's something that you need to be proud of. And what you can do is just get better at being a parent. But you don't have to consider yourself as a bad parent, because the next P is for what? Perfection. Knowing that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be the best that you can. And then P, have a plan. The American Association of Suicidology uses the acronym ACT, A-C-T. Ask. Don't be afraid to ask someone about taking their life. Care. Listen, offer hope, but don't judge. And T, treat. Take action, get assistance, and follow up. The military uses ACE, which is a little more broad of a description. It's ask, care, and escort. Ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? And it's not it's not saying, are you thinking about hurting yourself? See, someone who's planning on taking their life by suicide may not see that as being harmful, because they have decided that that's the solution to help everyone else. So they might not see it as hurting themselves. You have to say straight up, are you thinking about killing yourself? Ask. C. Their C is also for care, but remove any means that would be used for self-injury, especially guns, and in the case of males. Recognize, see, women actually attempt suicide 2 times more than males, yet the suicide rate for men is 4 times that of women. Why? Because men use lethal means, whereas women tend to use pills. So again, understanding that would make a difference. So E, escort. In the military, they say escort to the chain of command, escort to the chaplain, to someone where they can get professional help, your primary care doctor, or call 911, but stay with the person. And we can all be trained to help prevent suicide. Back to our piece of the puzzle. Recognizing the risk factors and warning signs of suicide can help to save lives. Equipped with information, you can intervene to get help for suicidal or at-risk family members, friends, or acquaintances. And the last P is for positive. You have to create an environment of positivity so that you will be available for outreach. I created something that I call the signs of the house. You see, you need to have signs on your walls, words on your walls. Pictures are nice, but pictures have perspective. Words tell it like it is. What do you actually believe in? And so here's some of the words that I have on my wall. Because see, the signs in our house that we have on our wall feed our spirit. They should make us laugh. They should make us think. They should make us feel good. So here's some of mine. In my bathroom, over my mirror, I have a little wooden postcard that says, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You're beautiful." So every morning I can tell myself that, and every time I go into the bathroom to the mirror, I can tell myself that. Over the toilet, I have a sign that says, "We aim to please. You aim to please." And then I also have a sign that says, "Good morning, this is God. I will be handling all of your problems today. I will not need your help. Have a nice day." Okay. In my living room, I have a sign that says, "Be reasonable. Do it my way." And I use that to support another sign that I have that says, "Make yourself at home, but remember that you're not." Okay. Then in my office, I have a sign that says, "Competition is a lot like cod liver oil. First it makes you sick, then it makes you better." And then passion doesn't punch a clock. Because if you're passionate about something, you don't even notice the time. And that's you entrepreneurs out there, I know you know that one. I tell people I go to sleep when I'm sleepy, I wake up when I'm finished sleeping. I do not have office hours, okay? And then I also have a sign in my office that says, I also want to have spiritual things that guide me. So I have a scripture from Galatians 6:4-5. It says, "Be sure to do what you should, for then you will enjoy the personal satisfaction of having done your work well, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are all each responsible for our own conduct." And another one I have, "Anyone who isn't helping me opposes me, and anyone who isn't working with me is working against me." And that's Matthew 12:30. So those are two important scriptures that I have on my wall. Go around and try to have words on every wall in your house, or at least in every room, so that you can see what you believe. Because guess what? I won't be with you saying stay positive, stay positive. You've got to have it in your spirit already, the stuff that you believe that can pick you up when you know you most needed to be picked up. So more importantly, again, is your reminder that you are in the business. You're in the business. That's why I made it business cards when I get. And by the way, the business card says, "I am an important piece of the puzzle in taking action to prevent suicide in every life and on every day." And so that's the puzzle that everybody got. But remember that you are in the business of saving lives and as an important piece of the puzzle. And I choose to use the puzzle because life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of the puzzle. Yet, no matter what size puzzle piece you see yourself as, without you, the puzzle is called incomplete. So consider that if we put all of those words together, we could save another life. Next week, I'll give you the Z, L, and E in our puzzle. But I wouldn't dare sign off. Excuse me. I wouldn't dare sign off without giving you a spoiler alert. Because I'm sure most people will rack their brains trying to figure out what the Z could possibly stand for. The first use of the Z will be the word zero. Sometimes people who want to die by suicide think they have no other options. But as we know, 0 hour is the military starting point. And civilians, as you recite the alphabet, when you get to the letter Z, you get to start all over again. And that's just your teaser. You can find out more about suicide prevention by visiting afsp.org and learning about their Out of the Darkness walks, which were very informational to me, and I just love them. I'm going to sign up to do it again. You can find out about combating teen suicide at HeyUgly, HeyUgly.org. And you can find out about me at www.sportyking.com. This has been G.L.U.E Wednesday. You keep it together, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.